This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Greetings one and all. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope the teething issues with the shift from the Whooshka podcast platform to Anchor have been resolved and you can listen to this via your usual or saved location. Man, what a process that was. Hope I don't ever have to do that again because, you know what? I love these conversations and I want to bring them to you as simply and as easily as possible. This conversation here is one of my all-time favorites for the podcast. It features a member of a group called A Rising Force from the United States, their guitarist Leni DiMancari. Now, the interesting thing about this conversation here is that, of course, it features a lot of chat about music, but regular listeners to the show will know that I like to talk about a bunch of things: news, sport, politics, current affairs. Let it all be on the table. But to be frank with you, it's just rare. A conversation with a fella like Leni, it comes up maybe once every couple of years. So we cover all of the things that I just mentioned, especially the political side of things. So if you're a bit sensitive about political stuff, you know what I'd say? Tune in. I think you need to. I think people have got to learn to agree to disagree and still be mates, still find ways to be compatible in the social arena. Before we dive into the chat, we will hear a tune from A Rising Force. It's an absolutely gnarly rock and metal tune titled Nobody Cares from the album Eclipse. And once it's done, you'll dive into the conversation featuring the man, Leni DiMancari. Let's do it.
The rain man, can we talk? No one cares about you. Please get out my way. No one cares about you. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Chip sent through the opportunity to have a chat to you, and it's not that I'm a skeptic, but you get a lot of stuff sent through to you, when you do this. And you put it on, and the thing that I really liked about what you guys are doing, it's not polished. And I want you to take that as very positive feedback, because I think the danger with this sort of music is to craft these wonderful hard rock and melodies, but then you put this sonic sheen over them that takes away the gnarliness, takes away the metal, and you haven't done that. And that's why I think this is so appealing for me as a listener.
Well, we wanted to achieve that. That's nice that you said that. Thank you, because all through the whole recording process of the last two records with these guys, I said, I don't want a perfect record. Perfect records are boring. If you have way too much stuff on it, like you said, it's too polished. You need to have that raw feel of emotion. I can listen to the record and go, oh, that was a mistake. I go, oh, we missed that there. But you know what? It's okay, because it's the human element. It's great that you picked up on that, because that's what we really wanted with this record. We didn't want a perfect record. We wanted a great record, but we didn't want a perfect sounding record,
No, I get sick of it, because I get sent a lot of stuff, particularly in the, when I say the emerging and younger genres of metalcore, deathcore, this sort of thing. And you listen to, you can hear what they're trying to do, but then they go for this quality of sound that actually ruins it in terms of the repeat listening experience isn't there. You can't do it for too long. And I've got a new music show, so I do listen to a lot of the stuff that gets sent to me via email. So when I heard yours, mate, I was just very pleasantly surprised. And the other thing, just to round that out, for my tastes, I really think you've nailed the Rainbow, the Dio fronted Sabbath side of things, with the Cozy Powell stuff, I call it. Is that something you were going for as well?
I think as a whole, as a band, our writing is a lot different. I'll bring an idea, maybe I'll bring lyrics and I'll bring some guitar parts, or I'll bring a finished song to all of us, and I'll say, what do you think of this? And then we all kind of get in that circle of death, and we go, let's do this, let's do that. I think all of us over the years have been influenced by some of the greatest music ever recorded. If you think back to the Led Zeppelin, and you think the early Deep Purple and Dio with Rainbow, and even Joe Lynn Turner with Rainbow, where they became a little bit more poppy. Kind of that crossroad was, I think, Down to Earth with Graham Bonnet. There's still some really good heavy stuff on there, but all of that music really influenced all of what all of us are in the band. So it natural progression as you come forward with things that you've learned or ideas that you've listened to and said, wow, that's really cool. I want to change that and do something here. Yeah, thanks. I mean, David definitely brought more of an edge to the band, a little heavier, bluesy, kind of a Coverdale, kind of a John Bush feel, kind of
John
sometimes
Bush.
Dio.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
John Bush, Armored Saint days, Anthrax days too. Like the Sound of White Noise is still one of the greatest records I think ever with Anthrax.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. I think it's that and Stomp 442 are their best two albums, yet they get marginalised these days because they're so focused on the Belladonna era. And so be it. They've got a commercial obligations to meet or what have you. But I'm so glad you mentioned John Bush here. He's just one of those iconic and influencing vocalists that never gets mentioned. I think this might be one of the first times that someone's mentioned him during a conversation, actually, and I think that's a shame.
Well, it's funny when Dave sent me his demos when I asked him to join and try out for the band. He wasn't sure if he could sing, the stuff from the first album because Mark was more of a tenor, more of a, I don't know, I guess kind of a Tommy Shaw type singer. And we wanted to go heavier on this record, and I purposely started writing a little heavier. Not, awesome. And then when Chris from Hairball referred David to us, I said, Dave, your voice reminds me of John Bush. And he was just like, he was kind of giddy because he hadn't heard that. And I'm a big John Bush guy. See, I love those early bluesy influence singers, you know, Coverdale, even the dude from Rare Earth was just so bluesy. I can even look at Paul Stanley from Kiss and go, man, Paul Stanley listened to Motown growing up. You can hear that inflection of that blues, you know? So.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself here. So I just want to give the listeners some background on the group, if that's cool. So can you give me some background on the band insofar as when you formed, who's in it? You already mentioned a member there, the singer there. And anything else you think the listeners should know about the group? Because you are a band that I want to get behind, actually.
Well, the three of us, the original drummer, we have a new drummer now, and I'll introduce him in a little bit. We were in a band called Dare Force, and we just couldn't get along with the lead singer. So we wanted to move on without him. So we did. We wanted a frontman. Luckily, we found a frontman that played guitar as well with Mark, and we went forward with that, and we called it a Rising Force. Kind of, you know, in a way, just kind of a poke at him because it was called Dare Force. So he said, no, let's call it a Rising Force, like that. And then we moved on with that. We got a record deal with Highball Music. Album did very well. There was Brian was from Dare Force, Brian Lawrence, and the bass player. Lane Allen was the last drummer with Dare Force, and he did 2 albums with us before he departed in early July. And now we have Peter Savage on drums from a Led Zeppelin tribute band, and Billy Schlump as a guitar player. But maybe I'm jumping over a little bit too much. So we got a record deal. We put out a video. Our owners of the record label got sick. Subsequently, the owner, Bill Chavis, died of COVID-19. His wife, about a week later, also died from COVID-19. We were sitting on our brand new video and our next single, which was Undertow. We sat on that video for almost 5 months as it was finished. And then Darkstar, who was affiliated with Sony and Universal, came to us and said, you know, you have a home here. Would you guys like to come over to our label? I said, well, you know, we'd like to get our music back. So we got a hold of our lawyer friend, Mick Spence, who drafted everything. We got our music rights back, which was a lot of work, but to get it out of an estate that was, does that make sense? Am I going too over the top? I'm trying to introduce
great detail.
Yeah. So
please continue.
I mean, it's kind of a story. So, I mean, we fought to get our music rights back. We didn't have to fight that hard. We drafted it really well. Mick still tells me, he said, well, you guys and one other artist are the only 2 that I've gotten out of record deals who have gone on to do bigger things. And the other one was Lizzo. So she went on to be pretty big.
Yeah, definitely.
So then we signed with Darkstar. They re-released the first record. We were in the studio when they released. We were in pre-production for the new record. So we released in February Undertow. The re-release came out. We're now sold out of those copies. So now you can just get it as a digital download. And then we released Eclipse. And that was on June 3rd. And, 8 weeks in the Billboard charts, the top 200. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Always wanted to do that,
Yeah, we're in interesting times, aren't we, in that respect? It's always an accomplishment, isn't it? And in some ways, rock and metal is so well represented. So, say, a relatively underground metal band like yourselves to be represented on Billboard wouldn't have happened, say, 20 years ago. But then at the same time, you still got to really fight to be heard, haven't you? You've got to conduct a lot of interviews and you've got to get onto these Spotify playlists, that sort of thing.
It's been a challenge at times. We've been very fortunate because there's a lot of people that really embraced this band early on. A lot of people believed in it. We wound up going out on the road with Tesla for some shows. We got to play with Ron Keel, an old friend of mine who actually helped us get that first record deal.
Yep.
We picked up shows with Firehouse, Brett Michaels, Tommy, the guy from Boston. I don't know why his last name. And Collective Soul. We've got shows coming up this month with Every Mother's Nightmare, and then a couple of headline shows here at the theater and at the venue down in Apple Valley, Minnesota called Bogart's. So then we're off to write the next record, October and November. So
yeah, definitely.
We're trying to stay ahead of it.
Striking while the iron's hot. That's a good strategy.
Well, we have 5 writers in the band. Everybody's got a great input. We all get along really well. There's never it's my song and I want it this way. It's always all for one, one for all, which is great. I mean, I've been in other bands and with record deals, and it's like, well, I'm the songwriter and I give 60%. And it's just like, really?
Yeah.
How about we just split it up like this? Just cut the pie, then everybody's happy all the time. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've been in bands. Obviously, I'm a musician. You can see behind me. Sorry, but and you're not even in bands that have gigged yet, and people are talking about slicing up the pie in terms of publishing and stuff. And you're thinking, mate, you are like decades away from even getting to that point. So what are we doing? Just let's play music, and whatever happens, happens. I'm sure we'll be rational and sort it out at the time. But yeah, sorry, just to dovetail that point onto something else. I spoke to Des Fafara from Cold Chamber and Devil Driver a couple of years back, and he was what was his comments? He can't play Cold Chamber music these days in the way that I think he wants to do, bring it to people. Like as Cold Chamber, he's got to play it in Devil Driver because of agreements that he got into very early on with the ex-members of the band, and it's just too hard to unpick them. So there is an element to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. I mean, a nice, we all run into, it's funny you mentioned that because I was told that we could never play a Dare Force song ever again. And I was kind of snide and I said, well, I don't care. I said, no big deal. I don't think anybody's going to care. We'd rather play our music anyways. So,
yeah,
that was that was one of the only things that ever came up with me, I mean, heck, my old band Hurricane Alice is still out performing still. I think they have a sold out show coming in mid-August. And Bruce and I buried the hatchet a few years ago. We didn't talk for almost 20 years after I left the band. We buried the hatchet and did the reunion show, and there you go. I mean, they still perform a lot of the songs that I wrote for the band back then. So I'm okay with it. I don't, to me, music is music.
Yeah, great perspective, by the way. Yeah, I've spoken to a bunch of people that are in your position, and the high road is definitely the best road from the perspective.
It's the only way to take it.
You don't want to hang on to these sort of gripes, do you? I mean, they just sort of eat up, don't they?
Yeah, I just, life is short. I mean, and the music business is hard. I mean, if it's too hard, get a helmet, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's... I believe me, I've had conversations with people that have been in bands for 20 plus years, and in some cases, mate, they've got less than nothing to show for it. They've just got debt, is what I mean, to show for it, and their life has gone off, and then they've delayed things like having children even, and they've got to a point where they're really resentful about life because of what's happened to them in the music business and the commitments and the loyalty that they've shown in some situations. And I've got a feel for people, and in some ways, because I always wanted to have a family and participate in a fairly normal life, just love the music, but I don't think I could have done what a lot of these people do, which is tour for 8 months in the year and then record an album and then rely on the goodwill of management or what have you to provide publishing royalties even when they've written the bloody music, let's face it.
Well, that was a nice thing about signing with Dark Star, is and even with Highball before that, we get to keep 100% of our publishing. Other record deals I had, I'm lucky if I got 12%.
Yeah.
15%, if that would be very liberal. I see my dog has been let out. She's going to come up and say hi. No, I guess not. Where are you? No, she's hi. All right. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Love dogs. We've got
Come
one
on
ourselves. So.
Come on up.
You say hello?
I was trying to get her to come up and say hi. No, she won't.
No.
Don't be shy. All right.
All right. Love dogs.
She might
love
pop
animals.
her head up here. So if you see this cute little Boston Terrier head pop up, that would be Xena, the warrior princess.
Oh, I should bring my wife in to have a look at her then, because
I don't know where she went, but
my sister-in-law's got a French bulldog. Is it French bulldog? Yeah, French bulldog, and they're similar. I know they're not the same, but they're similar. But the Boston, very very rare in Australia. I've got to say, and they're cost a fortune, close to 10 grand or something, between 5 and 10 grand for something. Yeah.
She this one's kind of a nice story. My wife and daughter were going horseback riding. They watched a guy throw a puppy out of the back of a truck and then speed off. So the little puppy was standing on the side of the road shaking. So my wife ran across the road and rescued this dog. And then I was on my way to a gig and she came in. She goes, "Oh my God, you won't believe what happened. We have to wash this dog off." And I went to the gig and then I texted her and I said, we can make room for her here at the house. We already have 2 dogs, 3, it's fine. The 2 Dobermans, and then you got this, Boston Terrier, Shar-Pei, American Staffinger mix. I don't know. She got a lot. But she's adorable. I don't know where she went, but I'm assuming she's on a
She's
squirrel.
just behind you before somewhere. Yeah, she's just rummaging through the garden there behind you before sniffing things out. Yeah, as they tend to do. All good. Hey, just back to the album in terms of so the name of the album, of course, is Eclipse. Is there any track on there that if you're going to show somebody what you feel encapsulates everything about the band at the moment, and you were asked to pick a track from the album, which would you choose?
It's hard to pick one, but I think that if there was one song that really highlighted, the band, not just individually, but musically, I would say Trouble's Back in Trouble Again.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when a musician listens to it, every musician's been through that scenario, the situation of coming home and everything you own is out in the front yard, because somebody couldn't put up with you being gone. Mm-hmm. Then the second half of the song, it's almost like you're sitting at the bar and confessing to a bartender, It's like, the rider's wrong, the back line isn't right, the hotel's cold every night, it's a really, that song, and it really shows the influence of Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Whitesnake and the band as a whole in that particular song. I even got to play slide guitar on it, which was kind of cool because I am not a good slide player. So I kind of figured it out,
Yeah, you couldn't tell that you're not a good slide guitar player because you nailed it.
And it was like one take, and our engineer looked and he said, "Well, I think that's done." I said, "Really? I could do better." He said, No, don't mess with it. I said, "Okay."
You captured a quality that can't be reproduced.
No, we had that on the record too, where there were moments that we heard something and somebody wanted to fix it, and we went, "No, don't. Leave it in there. It feels soulful. It's good. And if you hate it later, sorry, it went to press."
Well, you've got one of the gnarliest passages that I've heard from a group all year, and I'm talking about the group before the solo in "Nobody Cares." Okay, that it's almost a Metallica thing you've got going on there. It's heavy and it's mean, but it's groovy. So it's got some soul. It's got some Motown. Let's use that word. Got some Motown about it. I'm actually keen to hear your songwriting branch out more in that direction based on what I've heard here. Have you got any really heavy cuts in the can similar to "Nobody Cares"? That bit in "Nobody Cares"?
I can, I don't want to sound like a lawyer. I went to college to be one, but I never got there. I can't admit or deny that I may or may not be able to give you a title or two. There is one that I worked on called Disaster Piece, which is a lot like Nobody Cares. And started working on a song called Breaking Gina. We've got quite a few. Billy's just a little machine. He called me this morning at about 8:00. He goes, "Dude, I got 3 more songs." I'm like, "You're just going to wind up writing the whole record?" He goes, No. He gets so excited when he calls me, and it's like, and he'll send me this stuff. I run an entertainment company during the day. So my email's coming in and I get, oh, there's a new song. Oh, there's another song. Oh, there's an email from the East Coast. I better answer that. Yeah. But another song. It's like this big. And it's great because he's got so many great ideas, and he's just full of energy. He reminds me of me when I was in my 20s, which was a while ago. Because I was just so like, yeah, let's go, let's do this,
So that ties in very neatly with my next question, which is that with Eclipse, did you write the album and then invite contributions or collaborations from the other musicians? So in other words, can you tell me how it all sort of came together?
I like I said earlier, I mean, I'll bring the initial rough idea to the band. I'll say, what do you think of this? I'll give the lyrics to Dave. Dave will say, well, let's change this. Let's do this. Let's do that. And Nobody Cares, you mentioned earlier. That is 3 different song ideas in one song. Mm-hmm. So that crunchy, heavy part was very AIC, very Soundgarden-like, dun, 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 and Metallica. So if you put that in a blender, right? Then the solo sections were branched off where we dropped from the D minor to up. He's a great writer and he writes these really neat guitar passages and his style is more like a Nuno Bettencourt and Eddie Van Halen, Warren DeMartini. And I fall more into the George Lynch, Steve Lukather kind of Gary Moore kind of feel. So I'm more blues based, a little bit of jazz, but not a lot. And he's very technical, but he's got really good accuracy. And I'm sloppy like Jimmy Page, but I just try to get the point across, So yeah, I mean that for that song, yeah, I think Nobody Cares. That one, that's like 3-4 songs in one. Kind of like the first album, Love and War was just like one idea, and then we built the song out of that one idea and went backwards and forwards. It's weird how these songs come. I don't know, but I'll bring a lot of stuff, and I'm sorry if I'm babbling, but we'll just take it, and between the 5 of us, we'll just come up with that nucleus, and then we'll polish it, and we'll fix it, and we'll move apart, or Brian will say, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we drop this down, and why don't we play this twice? And we're like, yeah, that's cool. I'm really excited about writing the new stuff with our new drummer because he's very John Bonham.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Of course, he came from a Zeppelin tribute band. So, I mean, I would have to say he's probably next to Steve Bellino from Montrose and Leonard Hayes from Y&T, probably the best drummer I've ever worked with. Mm-hmm. Just working with him so far, and he's smart.
Yeah. It always helps when you're surrounded by intelligence, emotional and IQ type.
It's my dad said, surround yourself with people that can make you look like you know what you're doing. I went, oh, okay. So it's worked out. I mean, it's worked out over the decades of just trying to get great singers and great musicians. I'm proud of this record.
Yeah, this one, justifiably so. Yeah, it's a killer. Yeah. You mentioned.
I'm glad you like it.
I do. I love it. Yeah, it's great. As I say, I get sent plenty of stuff, but your album and another album from, I'm going to stuff up there and name that Earth Slug or something, some ridiculous name, to be honest with you, but not the music. The music is far from ridiculous, but this stuff just comes out of the woodwork. And, it's not my place to be annoyed, to be honest with you, when people say, hey, there's no good rock and metal around these days. I know it's bullshit. I mean, the amount of great stuff that I get sent, and your stuff is at the tip of the spear this month, certainly. I mean, there's just so much creativity out there these days. It just doesn't get mainstream press attention. And the opportunities afforded to rock and metal these days, we are at a point where rock and metal isn't even called rock and metal if you follow the Grammys, or Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the inductees in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's actually really a fan-driven thing. It's gone underground.
I agree. And it's weird how, do you remember a few years ago when all of a sudden there were so many different subcategories that came out to try to define metal? Mm-hmm. You had thrash metal, which to me, thrash metal was the early Megadeth and Metallica stuff,
Yep.
and Anthrax and Celtic Frost and stuff like that. Then you had goth metal. You had like 19 different versions of metal. To me, there was hard rock, heavy metal. Then there was the grunge era. And then everything got redefined again. So people took it. And then you had the post-grunge. And then you had, some really great bands came out. Disturbed, Godsmack, Shinedown. But Shinedown, I listened to a band like Shinedown, and Brent is amazing. And his songwriting is great, That's probably one of my favorite new bands that came out in the last 20 years.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's great that you like that music, because I can't hear it in yours, because it means that you're taking a very diverse array of sounds. When you're absorbing them, and whatever's being filtered through, it's coming out in a killer album like Eclipse. And I never understood also too the way the old guard. I've met people who still call Bruce Dickinson the new Iron Maiden singer. Unbelievable, right? I mean, you get these people that are so stuck in epochs, and you think bands like Shinedown, Godsmack, even I've played Five Finger Death Punch on the music show, and I'll play them alongside of A Rising Force, for example. Now, I don't know what people's genuine feelings are about these things, but the feedback I get is that people like the diversity. So I think these days that people do have an open mind about things. You still get some people that are very much about the box and the image. When I say the box, they want the category. They want to say, I'm into thrash or I'm into death metal or what have you. So I've long just called it all rock and roll, to be honest with you, mate.
It's just rock to me.
Yeah, it's just rock and roll. From the Rolling Stones to Morbid Angel, to me, it's all just rock music.
Yeah, I don't watch the Grammys much anymore. I kind of lost faith in it. It started, I think, when Jethro Tull won Best Heavy Metal Record against Metallica.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
And then it seemingly kind of started to go downhill. Now, if the Grammy people watch our show that I'm talking about right now, well, that just 86'd us out of a Grammy. But you know what? Oh, well, it was a good run, Thanks for being on the show, I'm like you. I mean, it's all rock. I mean, I listen to country. I listen to stuff that people go, I can't believe you listen to that. I said, I can't listen to hard rock all day. I'll go and listen to Sarah McLachlan or, there's a Canadian singer. Amanda Marshall is one of my favorite singers. Her first album is so good. And I'll listen to stuff like that. And then, because it's great songwriting,
Yeah.
I love Canadian singers. I don't know, Canadian female singers. Not that I'm, attracted to Canadian female singers, but there's just something special about some of those singers that came out. I still think, I remember my sister playing Tapestry for me by Carole King.
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest records of all time. And this is a hard rock guitar player talking to you right now, but you should listen to everybody, because to me, everybody has something to say. It's how you interpret what they're telling you, If you don't like it, well, you move on to the next track, or move on to the next band. There's a lot of bands out there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have some of those comments on my YouTube. Your opinion is wrong. I love that one. You have a wrong opinion, so this is the right opinion.
Well, yeah. Have you read the lyrics of Nobody Cares yet?
No, I haven't. Tell me. Go for it.
Well, listen. Next time you get one of those comments, just go listen to the lyrics of Nobody Cares, because it's about every troll asshole online that takes a shot at people. I just swore on your podcast. Sorry.
No, you can swear away. It's all right. We are not safe for work.
Well,
we are proudly not safe for work.
Okay, well, that's good. So it's not a safe harbor thing where we have to edit the word asshole out of our song to play it on regular radio if we release it in the next single. So God. I'm okay with that, whatever it takes.
No.
I'm going to have to move because the sun is sticking me right in the eye here. I don't know if you see that. I've got to.
Yeah, I can
see. We're here in here's part of the property. There's the lake.
Gotcha.
And it's out there. And let me find someplace. You know what? When I just slide back, I could set you on the grill. Here, I'll just hold it.
You sure?
I'll try not to get my hand in there. Here we go.
Yeah, just on your point there about Canadian chanteuses. I mean, Shania Twain 20 years ago, she was one of the best looking women on the planet. She just had it all
Still
going
is.
on. Yeah, you're right. She's God knows what age she is these days, but when she was in her 30s, Jesus, she was bloody something else. I play covers, right? So I have to play quite a bit of the music. So I do watch the videos just to see what's going on. And she had an illness there for a bit, or chronic fatigue or something affected her, and then she went away. But the recent performances I've seen her, to your point, man, she still looks great. Still got a killer voice too.
Which song are you jamming on with your band? Is it Who's Better Boots Been Under? Or is it
Man, I Feel Like a Woman's the big one. Still the one. Man, I Feel Like a Woman. They're the two. Yeah. So the big hits.
From this moment, I've never seen so many girls cry at one time in a bar. That when From This Moment came on and they're all weeping, going, "Oh my God, it's going to be my wedding song." It's like, yeah, you'll be divorced in 7 years, you know.
That and To Be With You, they're the two big songs, aren't they? I mean, they're just, as soon as you put them on, you see the women go, oh, and they just look run, don't
Come
they?
On Over was a great record, and Mutt Lange produced that record too. You know, Mutt from AC/DC and Def Leppard, and people were like, "Oh my God, Mutt Lange produced Shania Twain." I said, listen to what he did.
Yeah,
it's just amazing. Mutt's a genius. You know, Robert Mutt Lange was a genius.
I'm just going to check. I think Mutt Lange also did Megadeth's albums as well. I'm sure he did. Anyway, I could be wrong, or maybe it was his brother Dan Huff. No, I might be having confused with Dan Huff. I think Megadeth got a country singer, and so I've got it around the wrong way. But yeah, I mean, he's to your point, Mutt Lange. I mean, Shania is actually a rock singer. And she needed that kind of treatment. I think if you treated her the same way, they would go. I know it's the same audience, Mariah Carey, for example, but you're going to produce an album.
Singer.
Yeah, hey, unbelievable singer. Don't like the songs much, to be honest with you, but the songs as a singer, I would have loved to have seen her with a rock and roll, like, you know, a full-on rock and roll band like you guys, just doing one song, just to see how it goes.
Putting Lee Aaron in a country spotlight. Remember Lee Aaron from Canada? Yeah. There it is with the Canadian girls again. All right, there you go. Well, putting Mariah Carey in front of Metallica. Of course, the Metallica people would be like swinging from the shower curtains if that happened. But I could hear it because she has such a great voice. I mean, I just love great singers. You know, I love guitarists that don't have to say too much. They say what they need to say without trying to be over the top with it to try to make a statement. I think those days are gone. I mean, Trying to Be a Guitar Hero went out about 19. Well, you know, I'm sure someone they'll go like this. They'll go, "Oh, the guitarist is wrong saying that." About 89, 91, I think the Guitar Hero went away. You know, I think. You know, I mean. Satriani lived on. Gary Moore was fantastic. Look what Dan Huff did. I mean, Dan Huff had those 3 giant records, and then he went on to become a country music producer in Nashville, where he originally came from. A lot of people didn't know Dan Huff was a studio wizard musician out in Los Angeles, just trying to cut his teeth doing all the studio stuff as a hired gun. And then he, you know, wow, you know. That's why I think Nashville and I think country music and rock started to blend together, because I think all of the hard rock dudes said, well, this grunge thing is kind of crushing my groove. Maybe we should do this. And they brought all the heavy guitar parts to country. And now you've got new country, which some of it's really good and some of it sounds a lot alike. You know? Yeah,
you're on point. Keith Urban from Caboolture, you know, I suppose he's a country artist, but he was a rock artist first, and then he switched over. But he's from just up the road here, and he started out playing bars and pubs around town playing rock music, and I think his first album under his name is actually a rock music album. I don't think it's a country album. Could be wrong. I haven't dived into it too deeply, but I do know that he was originally a rock guy. And just to your point there about shredders, that whole thing ended in 1991. The last prominent person to come from that movement, I think the last one was Nuno Bettencourt from Extreme. And then
Nuno or John Petrucci.
Yeah,
John
those
Petrucci
guys.
would be another one.
Yeah,
those
yeah,
guys. Yeah, Nuno would. Yeah, I have to agree with Nuno. Yeah.
yeah.
He reminds me of Nuno. He reminds me of a young Nuno with all of his exuberance and happiness and spunk. And then he's like, "Hey, check this out!" And he does some guitar lick, and I just go, "Yeah, it's great. I can't play that. Go ahead."
Yeah, yeah. It's
He
interesting
can have
too.
all that stuff.
But you know about Nuno. The last prominent gig that he had was with Rihanna, of all people. Have you seen that? Have you seen the Oprah videos that he's been in?
No, I haven't.
No,
I'll have to look that up.
it's crazy. He's playing power chords in Rihanna's band. But I mean, look, he's you got to pay the alimony somehow, haven't you?
You got to pay the rent. I think a very famous singer from Midnight Oil said that it's time to pay the rent, even though it wasn't about that.
I played that song many times as well. Yeah, Beds Are Burning by Midnight Oil, Peter Garrett.
Do you still play it?
I played it last Friday
in the
night.
cover band? Do you still do it?
Yeah, we still. It's an Australian song.
It's
an
a big
Australian
dance
song.
hit.
So, yeah, it's
Right.
it's like I would argue in Australia it's as popular as something like Long Way to the Top by AC/DC. It's not held at that level, but it's got a political message to it too. So that sort of turns some people off. But I don't give a shit. I don't even agree with the politics, to be honest with you. But the song is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Beds of Burning was about global warming, wasn't it?
Land rights.
Wasn't that about
land rights and
okay.
Aboriginal, or all these treaties and things that are going on in Australia with Aboriginal Australians, a bit like the Indian reservation thing. Time to pay the rent, times of fair's fair, this sort of thing. But unfortunately, Peter, like so many of them, mate, a lot of them are these hardcore lefties, and they adopt these Marxist principles, if you like. Maybe not Peter, but a lot of the people in that complex, if you like, that industrial complex, and they try to insert themselves to get access to funds, mate. I know this is a tangent, but
No, go ahead, knock yourself out. It's fine.
The Indigenous industry in Australia is worth more than $33 billion of public money annually.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, it's ridiculous, mate. And you've got Aboriginal senators these days who are saying this is, the way things are being funded aren't leading to outcomes, and because they're not leading to outcomes, we've got exceptional amounts of domestic violence occurring in communities, high rates of alcoholism, just massive dysfunction. So where is this money going to? They're quite rightly pointing that out. And, of course, the people on the left don't like these Indigenous people who, they would self-identify as black, as they clearly are. They put them down and say that they're wrong, and et cetera. And they use even racial pejoratives, coconut, things like that. It's same thing happens in the States. It's all just fucked up, mate.
Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, David's a real strong supporter of the Native Americans and what happened to the Native Americans. He brought the lyrics to a song that Billy wrote, and why I can't think of our song title. Trail of Tears. You guys can punch me at rehearsal. Yeah. Okay. Trail of Tears. That whole song is about the Native Americans. And if you look through the lyrics and you read about it, you're like, wow, that really did happen. And you just kind of go, and it's sad because a lot like what you're saying with the Aborigine, there's a lot of alcoholism, drug abuse, drug addiction. There's, girls disappear. They disappear from the reservations all the time. Yeah. They don't find them. Mm-hmm. There's people. Our newscast here in the States that we watch did a special about all the missing girls from the reservations that are nobody's found them. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows where they went. And it's sad.
But where are the left-wing activists, the people who apparently, the Black Lives Matter movement, all this sort of stuff, these movements that are really just political movements, they're not actually they're not aimed at addressing outcomes, about delivering outcomes for people. They're about sloganeering and about standing on soapboxes and virtue signaling and making sure you have right speak on Twitter, this sort of thing. And it's fucking disgusting. We're at a point now where Aboriginal in Australia, where Aboriginal life expectancy is declining. Despite all of this money going
That's
into
sad.
these programs, it's declining. Probably the same thing's happening with Native Americans too. And so the question
Well,
has
it's
been,
not just that. Yeah.
well, it's been hijacked by the left. These issues have been hijacked by the left, and they've become very much about identity. So, where Marx talks about class, you insert what he talks about, you replace with what he talks about with class, with identity. And, if you're a straight white male, you and I, shut up. You don't have an opinion. You're not allowed to, except for when you're espousing left-wing talking points.
And not to go too political, but yeah, I have to say that identity politics plays a huge role in the States. It's huge. And I just, I look back and I think of the days of when could we elect people who actually just went in there and just did the job? Where did it go wrong? And I can't pinpoint it because I'm not a political scientist, right? I'm not poli-sci, but somewhere there was where everything kind of started to divide like two different tribes, and the division happened. And that's sad. I mean, there were moments, where you just kind of go, wow, remember when we used to get stuff done? Now they can't even balance a budget in the States.
No.
They still don't have a balanced budget. I mean, it's like...
I know.
I have to live on a budget,
But they say that doesn't matter. The Democrats are saying in the States it doesn't matter. And the other thing that they're doing through their media mouthpieces is they're redefining what a recession is. It's no longer 2 consecutive quarters of negative, not growth, but negative decline. Now they're redefining it and they're just saying it's a readjustment of the economy or what have you. It's fucking lies. It's just straight up lies. Meanwhile, petrol or gas prices, as you call them, are rising. The cost of living overall is going through the bloody roof. Access to real jobs, which give stability, and that's the key thing, is the quality of the job you're able to get access to is declining. And same issues are happening here in Australia. We're basically the same these days. There's very much the same issues, same economic forces, same political agendas are at play. And I just, you got to wonder, like, how the hell did we get to this point?
I don't want to point a finger at the pandemic, but the pandemic was a tipping point for a lot of the stuff to come. And it feels something to me. And again, I'm not pointing, right? Something still doesn't feel right about this whole situation, I mean, I had COVID. I had it for 13 days, right? You guys, your entire continent was shut down, wasn't it? Yeah. Then they shut it all down.
Certain states it was worse than
others. That was some dark times for 18 months.
Oh, it was horrific, mate. I can tell you there's not been one person that I've spoken to from the state of Victoria, which is probably similar to New York, I suppose, in terms of its politics and the like and makeup, the state of New York, and who hasn't told me that the pandemic, quietly, they don't want it broadcast, but they tell me, it was fucked. It was horrible. We were locked up for months on end, it turned out, for a disease that the word escapes me. It kills people, something like 0.000, insert a bunch of zeros 1% of the time, okay? Now, there were countries and states in the States like Florida, but there were countries like Sweden that managed to get through it not unscathed. People did die. There's no doubt about it. But that's where it became political. It's like, you don't want anybody to die, do you? Listen, if you want to take that view, you wouldn't drive cars. How many people get killed by vehicles each year? And then you might even go on to say alcohol. Do you supply alcohol knowing people can get behind the wheel before they're breathalyzed and drive a car? But they politicized it. They went nuclear with this one topic, to your point, and it was a binary issue. It was, you either support the fact that you either love your fellow neighbour and you don't want them to get sick and you take this view, which is the left-wing view, or you're on the other side and you're a Trump arsehole or what have you. And we're just not out of it yet, and it's ridiculous. And you got a political system. So it's a bit different to yours, but any political system that throws up the two candidates like it did in 2016 needs to be seriously checked between Trump and bloody Clinton. I mean, I think that's when I noticed a tipping point, like well before the pandemic. Bit of a long one here, but I'll just finish on this point here.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
I thought, if your great country, the greatest country that's ever been in the history of civilization, the United States, okay, this is where it could end, okay, between these two fucking idiots that you have to pick between these two here. And I'm not even blaming Trump for it, okay, but the fact that he's able to get elected based on the dislike, people could see straight through the Clintons. They are disgusting, just vulgar, okay? And Trump is a lot better in many respects, but he certainly isn't someone that
ordinarily you would compare to, say, some of the great presidents of your time, Eisenhower, Truman, this sort of thing.
Kennedy.
Even Kennedy. I mean, and you think, Trump, how the hell did he get here? But then you look at the long road that the country and Western civilization in general has been on. Okay, and you go, this is how this happens. But, Jordan Peterson's covered a lot of this sort of stuff, and there are renowned thinkers
I enjoy
out there.
Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan's
I enjoy
fantastic.
watching. Jordan's great. Yeah, Jordan's great. Jordan is about one of the most real people to listen to because he's just right there. He doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't coddle. He just says what he feels, and his accuracy is pretty spot on at times. So, yeah, Dr. Peterson, pretty brilliant, I know what you're saying about that whole situation, because all of us in the family, it was like, okay, you vote for the lesser of two evils?
Yeah.
What, you know what I mean? It was just like, okay. And there were things I see personally. I love Trump's economy. As a person, couldn't stand him. Never could.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So many people
I got
fall
tired
into
of the
that category.
Clintons. I just got tired of the Clintons. I got tired of it. I mean, it was like, my fellow Americans, we're going to do, come on. He had some great things that he did, but every president has great things and then bad things. And then the bad things, unfortunately, and the human psyche, the bad things outweigh the good things. And, me, I'm right in the middle. I can't go right or left. I just try to stay right down the center, listen to both sides, and form my own opinion. And that's the only way it can be. Because the minute you say something, there's always someone online that's going to, attack you or try to cancel you. So you know what? I don't even talk about politics. I mean, I wrote a song about politics in the first album called Yesterday's Hell. That whole thing is dedicated to the Gulf War and how how our soldiers came back and they had nowhere to live and nobody was taking care of them. That whole thing is line for line on the first album. That's as political as I got. I try not to do it because, I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to offend anybody, but I don't want. The music business is so fragile that it would be great if people really said, man, I want to find something I can be behind and not go, yeah, I'm just waiting for him to screw up so I can hate him. You know what I mean? It's just like people are just waiting there with that enter button,
Yeah.
Which is sad. So how did we get here? Andrew, how did we get here?
I despair at times because like you've no doubt got a family, as I certainly do, and you do get a bit concerned about the world you're leaving for your grandchildren at this point, and you start to think, okay, because you got these psychopaths at the what is it? Not the World Health Organization, is it Davos? These people. The point's not going to make any sense now, but the German individual whose name I can't, New Schwaben, that's he, whatever organization he represents and it's a figurehead for, talked about you will own nothing and you will be happy. What the hell? Like, what do you mean we'll own nothing? It's socialism. It's just socialism. It's just all someone's got to own it.
Is that something that Lenin said many years ago or Stalin? I mean, it sounds like very Karl Marx, like by saying that,
it just
look at us going off on a tangent. We're talking about rock and roll, and here we are.
The Great Reset.
But it's cool. Yeah. It's like, what? It's like two guys sitting down at the bar just having a beer. Of course, me, I don't drink, but maybe you do. But yeah, and I'm sporting a Guinness shirt that my buddy brought back from Ireland for me.
Oh, that's cool, mate. That's just a good paradox. I like that because you can still rep and not drink. I mean, you've still supported the brand.
It's been 20s. What is it? Well, Guinness. If I did drink, it would be that beer. But I haven't any alcohol this is my 27th year now being sober. So I used to be pretty good at it. That's what the judge told me it'd be a good idea to maybe dial it back, and I did.
Oh, really?
Not that I did anything really stupid, but it was stupid enough to say, yeah, I'll go to AA, I'll quit. Here's your money, and I'll live with the consequences for a couple of years on probation. It was, it was a wake up call. I can look back after doing a little personal inventory. Yeah, I was an asshole. So I'm glad I'm not an asshole anymore. Although I probably have people who disagree. Well, he has asshole tendencies. Well, maybe. I think we all do, but not as bad as they were, say, 26, 27 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Did you find the process of giving up, did it happen over a long period of time, or were you able to do it fairly quickly?
First month was the hardest. It was. Because you have to disassociate yourself with the places you went and the people you used to hang out with, and you had to find those triggers that made you want to drink. So it was a process. I got my 3 month, my 6 month, my 1 year, then a 5 year, then a 10 year, a 20 year. Should have picked up my 25 and 26 year medallions, but I started going to the meetings, and I kind of went, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's about having willpower. If you have the willpower to stop or start or do something, it's all about your intestinal fortitude. If you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I blame my Irish heritage, you see. It's just like drinking. I've got to say, I've got to touch wood, I've never had anything happen whilst I've drunk, but I've given up for like 3 month stints. And to be honest with you, life just wasn't as interesting and as exciting, which is why I started drinking again. But I mean, I'm talking like once or twice a week. I'm not talking like daily or anything like that. And I've spoken to a doctor about it, and ideally you'd have none. You do what you're doing, but I don't know. If it shaves a year or two off your life, mate, as long as the years that you've lived are full of life and love and happiness and joy and the pursuit of things that are meaningful, like conversations like this, I think you've done a pretty good job.
Well, it's a great conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think, and I'm not an expert on it, but I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any drugs. I'm like granola. Is what I am, I'm like whole oat granola now. And I run into people, and I've lost friends over the years here in the music business that never stopped. And I've had to go to their funerals. And you've had those come to Jesus talks with your friends and said, you should probably stop. And it's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, okay. I could have slid into a family of 6 if I hadn't have stopped, so.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing, is watching your musician buddies pass away because they never stopped using drugs or alcohol. A lot of funerals in the last 10 years. Too many to go to. I know it sounds horrible, but I asked my dad when he was alive, I said, how come you don't go to all your friends' funerals anymore? And he said, because there's so many of them. I can't, I'd have to take a whole week off of work, to do it. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So
yeah,
boy, this has gone round and round. It's been it's like the two of us are just sitting in the living room. Well, actually, you're in the living room, and I'm out on this brick thing that we're still paying for.
Oh, it's awesome. And look, I've said this so many times on the show that it's the seasoned pros like you, the people that have lived enough life to have perspective but have still got skin in the game. These are my favourite conversations because we can go anywhere with them. It's unfortunately, particularly with some of the local Australian acts, the younger guys, I've got to just stick to the music, and that's fine. It's what it's about, but it's not just what it's about. We're humans, and we're all bound to this human experience. So we all experience life in different ways, and I think it is worth talking about, whether it be politics or abstaining from alcohol.
Well, that and songs, the greatest therapy that's free is being able to sit down and write it down. If you sit down and you can pen out a song. I mean, I've written songs about personal experiences, like going back to the first album, Black Eyed Susie, that's about my divorce, and the kid, it's about a divorce. I mean, it's about that situation, or Undertow on that album, the title track. That's about my journey. I finally wrote a song about the journey through alcoholism and the darkness, and that touched a lot of people. People actually came on and said, wow, I can really relate to that. I said, cool, and then Love and War. We've all been through that. You go to our new album. I mean, Nobody Cares deals with internet idiots, and one in particular, I'm not going to name them, or Shame. The same thing. Cancel culture is full of vultures. They all want a piece of me. I mean, that whole thing is about the destruction of the human condition of being able to have a conversation like you and I are having a conversation right now. People would rather just text. They'd rather email. It's like that face to face. And I feel bad for, the younger generation because they're growing up thinking that this is the norm. When we grew up, we went out and played. We hung out. We got all of us together. We had conversation. None of us had cell phones. I mean, my grandkid has got a cell phone. He's 7. I'm like, what is this? Does he even know how to dial? I mean, but no, video games. So, I mean, it's just this, I'm a big digital minimalist when it comes to it. When I'm done with the phone, I'm done with the phone. I don't spend all day on social media. I don't, sit and, I work on a computer, but I get up and I walk around and I put the phone on airplane mode and I come out in the backyard. I listen to birds, take my dogs out, go out to my horses. Well, it's kind of been hard with my horses. I don't know if Chip told you. I had a little bit of an accident on stage.
Oh, wow. Got the moon boot on.
Yeah. Got the moon boot on. I look like I'm RoboCop. It's Robo-Len, No, I just turned. We were playing a festival it was the same festival with Bret Michaels and Tommy DiCarlo from Boston. That's the guy. And it was same night, about 6, 7 songs in. I did that weird spin move I've done since I was 19. I pivoted, went back to go get to David out on the pier because the stage went out. It was great because it went out over the crowd. And I planted, and then I got to the other foot, and it felt like somebody hit me with a hockey stick. And I wound up tearing a gastrocnemius and a soleus in my left foot from my calf down to my ankle. So I've had this boot on for 3 weeks, but physical therapy is helping. Hopefully I'll be able to stand at the next 2 shows,
Oh, God. Well, you could always get that throne that Dave Grohl gave to Axl. That one? Have you seen that?
It was pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that, yeah. Yeah, and a friend of mine at the music store, it said, hey, you can get the Dave Grohl throne. I said, is that on Amazon? Because, I got an Amazon account. I wonder how much that is. Oh, that's a little bit too much money.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
I'm impressed. So he finished the show. He finished the show. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. I've spoken to a bloke in Australia who was part of the entourage, if you like, that toured Australia with Axl when Gunners were coming through a few years back, and he assures me that Axl's public perception is at odds with what he's like as a bloke on the road. The hell-raising days are well behind him, and there's a lot of stories out there around about, what he got up to in the 90s and stuff and the excess of that band, let's face it. But these days it's just a well-oiled machine, and Axl's fairly cool, calm and collected from what I hear.
Yeah, I wish I'd have seen him on the last tour, but the ticket prices were so expensive. I just said no, and I'm not one of those guys that wants to call in a favor to get tickets from somebody I know. I just don't do that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be a fanboy or try to, because bands got to get paid, even though they're getting paid a lot. The broker, the promoter, everybody's got to get paid for that. I don't want to get freebies. I could have, but I think it was 1991 or 92. They played the Target Center in Minneapolis, and he didn't go on stage until probably 1:45 in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
It may have been earlier. But there was a city ordinance. They had to get the concert over. They weren't done until 3:00 in the morning. There were riots. And that was when they were having some real problem. I think that was the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 tour.
Yep.
So that was the last one. And I kind of said, yeah, that's it.
Were you at that gig, were you?
No,
The
I sent
Minneapolis one?
I sent the kid's mom to that gig with her friends, and then
Oh,
she
wow.
didn't get home till about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just like, okay. And then she explained the whole situation. I was like, yeah. And then I was friends with Wendy and Ingressano from Geffen Records at the time because I was working
Ah,
with those people, and indirectly, it wasn't anything music. I didn't have a record deal or anything with Geffen, but I knew Wendy, and Wendy warned me. She said those guys are pretty tough right now on the road. You might not want to go backstage. So she goes, but I'm sending you some tickets, and I said, well, I'm not going to be able to go. So I put them in my wife's name at the time, and they went with her friends. I mean, I could have gone. I could have called Bob at Rose and said, "Hey, can I get some extra tickets?" But I didn't want them. So
yeah.
I don't like. Again, I don't like calling in favors. If it's offered, sure, But most of the time, if it's offered, I'll pass them off. For someone who couldn't afford to go, I'd rather be humanitarian.
This was, I've got to tell you, Lenny, this is unexpected in a very, very lovely way, in a very positive way.
Thank you.
I do this for these sorts of conversations. Can you believe it? Meaning that these are the ones that I enjoy the most. They're rare because I'm often on a treadmill and, what's the next one? I think Rob Flynn from Machine Head. Can you imagine what that conversation? It won't be anything like this one, that's for sure. Because he's a bit of a lefty, and I've said some things about him on the show actually, and I think people are going to be a bit surprised that I've got the opportunity to talk to him. But I don't shy away from talking to anybody except for a few, like the Man of War guys. I wouldn't touch. Except for Ross. Ross is fantastic, and don't really
Ross
consider
the
him.
boss.
Yeah, he's a lovely fella, and he's been screwed over by fucking Joey. I mean, ever since that Carl,
That's sad. I mean, it's just sad how that. And I just remember, I don't know if I told you. I know you got to get going.
you're right.
I got an opportunity to do an album with Leonard from Y&T, and Y&T was huge in the States. Not as big as I think they could have been, but big enough to set at one time the marquee attendance record, surpassing the Stones at one time. So Leonard and I did a record, and that was one thing about we became really good friends before he passed away, and he told me just some of the publishing horror stories, where he and Joey thought that they should have gotten more credit on songs than they did. And nothing against Dave. I see Dave. I think I saw the band in the last 5 years, but that was the first time I'd seen Dave in probably 25 years. But just again, like I told you earlier, make it fair. It keeps everybody interested. The minute you start making someone feel like they're not as important as the other, that's when they either start to stray or they start to get a really bad attitude. And when I hear stories about people losing their publishing or getting screwed over, you hear it about management. There's a band in Minneapolis, Semisonic, had a huge hit called Closing Time, which was big. It was a big hit, right? Those guys didn't make anything. That was the biggest hit in the world at one time. And they didn't make anything because the record company just kept keeping them in debt. One of the guys said they kept going to all these parties and they have these huge spreads of food. Yeah. And then one day he said, well, who pays for this? He goes, well, you guys do. It's like,
It's a criminal. It's a criminal. Or the way that they do things is criminal. It's like a bikie gang. You hear the stories about bikie gangs, right? You get invited to the clubhouse to play as a band and they put out a spread for you. It's the same thing. You think, oh, this is what I've heard, okay? I haven't done it. I was in a band years ago with a bloke who understood how it worked. And he told me, you never accept gig. You never accept, it wouldn't happen these days anyway because bikies are very different. But back in the day, you accept a gig from a bikie club. You go to the clubhouse, they put in a spread for you, beer, alcohol, maybe whatever else you want, and you think it's just given to you as a nice gesture. They call it in. Next time they got a show on or something like that, they call it in and say, hey, you owe us because we gave you all of this stuff and you took it all. So, and I've had mates confirm that just even when they've just been associates or whatever, and they've just turned up and hung out at the club or what have you. But my point is that that's what the record industry, the music industry can be like, isn't it? You don't know whose dime things are on until you ask.
What it used to be like. I mean, what it used to be like, I think, since the advent of MP3 technology and Napster and all of that, I think it all changed at that point where everything suddenly, a lot of record companies either merged or dissolved, or they became part of the big conglomerate. Now, most of the deals you get these days, you're pretty much doing everything your own, and they handle your distribution for you, or it's a 360 deal where you still do everything, but they get a piece of everything.
Yeah,
it's way different. And there's a lot of competition out there right now. A lot of competition.
The only thing that I've seen that really gives you an advantage is a razor sharp social media strategy. Someone who understands how to do that. That seems to be the difference, because there's a lot of average bands that tend to get a lot of attention because they cover a Kylie Minogue song or a Taylor Swift song or whatever, and that's the gimmick. I'm just saying, I don't know for a fact that bands cover these artists, but I'm saying they do things like that and they turn it into a TikTok video. Okay, and that gets 1 million views or what have you. I don't know how much of that then translates into a fan base, though, but that's certainly what goes on.
Well, I guess I look at that and I say, well, how do you build your fan base then? Because if you're really big today and for that 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden you don't have something to follow it up, it's just, unfortunately, we're in a consumption society. Everybody wants something new all the time. They want this, they want that. That's why Facebook is so addictive. I mean, it's based on Las Vegas gambling principles. That's why they created that screen. So you pull it down to get a fresh news screen.
100%.
You know what I mean?
What you just said.
Yeah. So, I mean, you get addicted to it. And if you're putting your music out in front of the eyeballs, I mean, we're in the attention economy now. We're not so much in the listening economy.
Yeah.
The listening economy is almost secondary to the attention economy. That's why I think news stories come out on the major, the CNNs and the Foxes and all that, and the MSNBCs, they come out, they want the crushing headline because all of a sudden you're laser focused on it. Yeah. Well, then it dies off, and then they're on to the next crushing headline.
Yep.
Kind of, in a way, it's kind of like the music business. It's like, I'm really blessed that our band spent 8 weeks on Billboard. You dream of that as a kid, it's kind of like, my fantasy was to be on ESP Guitar's website one day. Well, it came true.
Nice.
Finally came true. It took a while, but yeah, it's just really nice to be in company with, James Hetfield and George Lynch and people like that. Kirk Hammett. People that have made their mark in the music business. I feel very honored. I proudly use their guitars. Not that it's a plug. I'm not trying to get a plug in, but it's things like that. You have to work for it. I mean, our band's out there trying to gain fans. We don't care if it's 100 people, 10 people, 1,000. Well, some of these Tesla shows, I think, were sold out. I think we were close to, there were 7,500 at one of them, 25, 35. Sold a lot of merch,
That's awesome.
So a lot of CDs. So making friends and fans, but that's like old school. I mean, a lot of people forget. Bands like the Police went out in a station wagon and played everywhere across the country promoting that until Roxanne hit. Now these days, a lot of bands have to buy their way onto these tours.
Yes. Yeah, I hear about that. Yeah. Well, I think your success is
old school.
Yeah, old school, but I think if you plug away long enough, good things happen, and your intentions and your motives are you got solid integrity behind them, and you do, of course. I mean, appearing on an ESP website alongside of those guitarists you mentioned, Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield and those guys there, man. I mean, I just think it's just desserts for this killer album, a killer attitude too to bring the music to the people. That's the other thing, and authenticity shines through, and it certainly does with Eclipse.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you're digging the record. We're really proud of it when we finished it, and we said, "Wow, this is great." And then the video hitting over 65,000 views. Yeah. I think it's close to 66,000 now. We're going to shoot the next video here as soon as I get healed up. Of course, I won't be running around on stage or doing any of those cool moves. Probably just be standing there all stoic, with some rock pose like Richie Blackmore.
Richie Blackmore's or Mick Mars, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Mick just stood there and played, but you know what? That was okay because that's all he had to do because he had the other guys that were very animated. Same with Richie. Look at Ian Gillan running back and forth in Deep Purple and Dio and yeah, I guess if there was one concert I wish I'd have seen Rainbow with Graham Bonnet.
Yeah.
That would have been neat.
Graham's a good guy
on the
too,
Down
I've
to
got to
Earth
say.
tour.
If you've spoken to Graham before, you'll know him. Yeah, he's a fantastic fellow.
No, I never have, but I've been a fan for a long time. I wasn't a fan of the record. I wasn't a fan of the Alcatraz stuff as much as I was, his new solo stuff is great. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
That's great stuff. I hope he comes to the States,
Well, I think he's doing stuff with Michael Schenker as well. And so he's certainly got it going on, Graham. But he's one of those guys. He's a bit like Glenn Hughes. Him and Glenn Hughes, they're just champions. They've both been through the absolute ringer with it, but they come out the other side intact.
Right. Yeah, I missed the Schenker tour where he had Gary Barden and Robin McCauley and Graham Bonnet.
Yeah.
I thought there was
Robin's
another
great
guy.
too. Yeah, right. Have you spoken to Robin or do you know him?
No, our singer knows him.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
I think Robin's that's where David, I think, knew him from. It was Vegas,
Yeah, good guy.
David,
all those guys are great.
Well, how do you? It's awesome that you do interviews like this, and it's nice to be in an interview situation with someone where it's just a very relaxing, kind of a table talk conversation. Where it's not, well, here's question 3, here's question 4.
Oh, I hate that.
It's just more natural to do it this way. It's great.
But yeah, this is what we're doing here is just so rare. I listen to, I guess this is my hobby. I mean, it's not I get a few $100 from Google or whatever, but it's nothing to bank on. I'll get the kids' toys or whatever with the money that I get from it. Who cares? I don't even register it. Doesn't even register to come in. I got a job, so that's where my money comes from. But these sort of conversations, I find people in my position are afraid to have chats. Okay. And I base that on observation, not because I've spoken to people myself. But yeah, to your point, it's all, this is question 1, and then it'll lead on into this, and all these over-exaggerated laughter and stuff, and like unnecessary humor, like forced humor. And some of them are unlistenable. It's either that or in the podcast scenario, they give you, they make you wait up to 15 minutes before you actually get to the chat. And I like Jamie Jaster's doing that these days from Hatebreed. I mean, he's one of the OGs, the original gangsters of what we're doing here. And his show has just morphed into this behemoth where he's just advertising bullshit to you. I can't even buy the stuff here in Australia. So he's got a global audience, yet it's tailored, yet his advertising is tailored specifically for the American fan base. That's fair enough. But for someone like me listening to it, it's like I couldn't do that to people. I don't even ask for money for people like through Patreon or GoFundMe or what have you. People have actually rung me, not rung up, but messaged me and said, "Hey, we want to support you monthly. Where can I give you $5 a month?" And I said, "Don't worry about it. Just go and buy. If we ever catch up, buy me a beer. That's it."
If we ever come to Australia, my bass player will sit down and chug one down with you.
Cool. Oh, I really wish
that'd be
you guys...
neat to get out there. I mean, it would be great,
Yeah, well, there's another band that Chip looks after that I really like as well, called Voodoo Moonshine, and
great band.
Yeah, you guys would just make a killer. Yeah, imagine that, you guys both coming down here. I know it'd be difficult.
They're on our roster. They're on our roster for my company. So I run an entertainment company here when I'm not playing Rockstar.
Yeah.
So I'm out there trying to book tours, and Jeff and I have talked about that, and even the record label. We're both on the same label. But boy, can that dude sing! Holy cow, what a singer! What a great band! I mean, it's just grungy, and Pedro is just so good, and they're just dirty good rock and roll. It's no punches pulled. It's just right there. I love that. It's like the Every Mother's Nightmare record, Resurrect the Faithful. People are thinking, oh, is it like Love Will Make You Blind? No, not even close. Listen to it. It's like dirty Memphis rock and roll. I love that kind of stuff from the heart music, and Voodoo's great at that too.
Yeah, I've spoken to Jeff and Pedro actually for the show, and both good guys like you, man. Just easy to talk to, man. It's just you find, it's we expect. My conversation with Jeff was actually similar to the one we're having. Just able to go in different areas and different parts of the compass, as I say, and cover things and not worry too much about, not self-censor, because I hate that. You know, I mean, use your common sense, but never self-censor, because it's ridiculous. And this is where the totalitarianism is starting to creep in, because people are, and Jordan Peterson has spoken about this. Sorry to go back onto this topic, but I'll just make this final point.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Is that it's bad when people are coerced into doing things. It's worse when people actually willfully submit to it. We saw that with the pandemic lockdowns. It's like none of that was legal. Okay, I'm not one of these sovereign citizen people who think that we don't have to listen to the government. Far from it. I think you need law and order, but you need law and order, not totalitarianism, not these police in black shirts beating the living daylights out of people because they're attending an anti-lockdown protest. Wrong. When they won't turn up to a Black Lives Matter protest, they won't touch that, of course, but that's not a super spreader event. But the anti-lockdown protest is a super spreader event. And you see this narrative that's being cast, and you just think to yourself, we the people, okay, we the people need to stand up for who we are. It's not about your civil rights. It's about who you are as a person, I think, and your strength of character and what sort of life, and I made that point earlier, what sort of world you want to leave for your grandkids. Is it one where they do self-censor, where they're not allowed to say things? Like, we're all guilty of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time occasionally because we're fucking human. Okay, that's what that's the human. Our worst doesn't define us. It's part of the experience, though. Okay, so if we all have arguments when we've all had arguments where we've said things that we regret, but that's what makes us human. We've all had ideas that aren't necessarily fully formed, and we've stood behind them as if they were. Okay, but that's what growth is all about. And if you self-censor, you deny yourself these opportunities, I think, and that's where I think it's extremely dangerous, this path we're going down. And Jordan's spoken about it at great detail about how worried he is about the way that the political system, the political outcomes, particularly in Canada, with that fucking psychopath Trudeau up there. You know, I mean, isn't he just a fucking man-child, that bastard? Really, I mean, he's probably the worst Western leader around these days, and that he even beats Emmanuel Macron from France.
I have to add something to what you're saying that you'll appreciate. I could never understand why certain things were essential and certain things were not essential. I always thought we were all essential because we all kept the machine going. But the thing that always got to me was you had to wear your mask in the airport, you had to wear your mask on the plane. But then you could take your mask down to eat, but then you had to put your mask back on after you were eating and spitting food, little particles of food, and while you're eating. I just, you know, I mean, I shook my head at some of this. I just went, oh my God, you know, for musicians, it was a great time to write, but unfortunately it was a really sad time because a lot of people off themselves because of the pandemic, because they couldn't work.
The shadow
Some people
pandemic.
didn't I think on the album you get a chance to listen to the song Lockdown. All those lyrics were written during the pandemic. That was a holdover from the pandemic onto this record. That whole story. I mean, you know, Mama says trust in Jesus, but the church is closed. You know, churches are never closed, but they were closed during the pandemic, you know? Yeah, it's weird times, but you know, we have Andrew, we have rock and roll.
Yeah, we
have music. We still have that little escape. You know, we can go with a set of headphones and we can just walk off somewhere and we can listen to what other people feel and how they're portraying themselves musically. And see, that's still a beautiful thing. You know, I think we're all suffering a little bit from solitude deprivation. Because I think everybody needs that solitude. Yeah. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, it was forced upon you. It wasn't something that you naturally went and did, you know, where you said, I've had enough, I'm going fishing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Walden did that. He took off, you know, how long did what was it, Walden Woods? I mean, that whole thing, Ralph Waldo Emerson? Am I quoting the right author or am I wrong? I don't remember who it was.
Sure. Yeah, but I'll take your point, though. The philosophy behind what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I've got the wrong author. Of course, well, here we are. We're getting canceled again. Your guest didn't know what the author was.
I like to think of my audience as being very highly intelligent, so that's all good.
Okay, well, that's cool. So these one or two guys will cancel me. No big deal. No, it's that solitude deprivation, and I think everyone's got this brain fog still. It's just there's too much of this. There's too much of this.
Yeah.
You get out, live. Oh my God, Facebook isn't working today. You know what? There's an outside world. Let's go.
Yeah. Go swimming. Go swim.
Wow,
go
I can't
surfing.
read my Twitter feed.
Yeah. Whoa! Shock horror! Isn't that going to be really negatively and adversely impact on your life? Twitter. If there's one thing that I could, if I had a wand. And outside of my own present personal conditions, and also big things like world hunger and floods and famine and all of that sort of stuff, the one thing that I would remove is Twitter, because it's a fucking sewer. It's just a toxic cesspit.
I have to agree with you.
Awful.
Yeah.
Nothing
like
good
I said,
about it.
I'm not a big social media guy. I limit myself. I try to get in and get out as quick as I can. I'll post something and get out, because I don't want to get stuck. This has been a great conversation. Wow, we should do this once a week. Only you don't have to broadcast it. We'll just talk. Let's hang out. We'll build a friendship across the ocean. There.
Well, fantastic to catch up, mate. Thanks so much again. We'll keep in touch for sure.
Cool.
All right.
Take care.
Talk again soon, mate. Catch ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
There you have it. My chat with Leni DiMancari from the group A Rising Force. Man, I wish more of my conversations flowed like that, I've got to say. Leni and I could have spoken for hours, and we might even reconnect. Actually, let's do that, Leni. Before I let you go, I need to share some information with you. I've written a book. A lot of you know that, but if you're a first-time listener, I've written a book, Scars and Guitars, Volume 1, Conversations from the World of Heavy Metal and Beyond, and you can go and download a sample over at my website. Click on the link in the banner. It'll take you to a marketplace, Amazon, Google, Apple Books, you name it. Download a sample, and if you do complete the purchase, do hit me up, because I want to thank you personally. I've got a bit more information to share with you about the book, so please stick around and have a listen to that. But before I let you go, my name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it's a very goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
If you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words, sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not going to be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.